Well, we can go ahead and get started. I think everybody's here for right now. So I'll go ahead and introduce our speaker. Leslie Walker is a certified hospitality sales professional and the community engagement manager for United Cerebral Palsy of Huntsville and Tennessee Valley. She joined the UCP Huntsville team as a full-time staff member in 2018 after having served as a volunteer for the organization for over a decade. Leslie previously worked as a convention sales manager for the Huntsville-Madison County Convention and Visitors Bureau, a director of sales for Holiday Inn, corporate sales manager for Marriott, as well as numerous other roles in the tourism industry. Leslie's 30-year career in the hospitality and meeting planning industry has enhanced and informed her efforts to bring awareness to UCP's mission, to plan their numerous fundraising activities, and in the creation of UCP's new statewide grant program designed to pair hotels and attractions with travelers who have an autism and sensory sensitivity diagnosis. So I'd like to welcome Leslie and look forward to hearing her presentation.
Thank you once again so much for all of you for having me here this afternoon. I am pleased to be here and always excited to spread the good word about Tourism ALL-a-Bama. I see Daryl and Melissa and Holly, who have all made this program possible through the Alabama Council on Developmental Disabilities. And I want to do a special shout out to Tamika Mitchell, who suggested that I be here today because she recently utilized this program. So Tamika, I would love to hear your feedback at some point to share with the group on how your experience was. But this program came about through a series of, strange coincidences or incidences in that, as I mentioned previously in my bio there, that my background is in hotels. I worked in hotels for 30 years and then came on board with United Cerebral Palsy back in 2018. Well, as you all recall, my role in fundraising and community engagement probably vastly changed right around March of 2020. And I don't know if that date sounds familiar to you at all, but you might remember a few things occurred that really changed what I was doing in that role. And so we started thinking about how do we get out in the community and serve our clients in a different way. And thank goodness, ACDD was looking for innovative ways to deliver existing services to the developmental disabilities community. And so I'm sorry. I was going to say, did my sound out? Okay. Anyway, so ACDD was looking for innovative grants, and so we decided that we would take my background in hotels and the hospitality industry and get together with an advisory council of professionals and parents and end users with sensory sensitivities and develop this program to take hospitality and marry it with those with sensory sensitivities. Now, before we get way deep in, let me just say that in order to break through to the hoteliers and to make them understand this potential client base, there's a lot of talk in this program about autism specifically because it is a way for them to understand and relate because they may themselves have family members on the spectrum. However, this program is open to anyone with any sensory sensitivity diagnosis of any age. So I just want to make that clear before we dive in. All right, so when I first started doing the research and reaching out to families about this program, I am not an autism professional. I am a hospitality industry professional. So I said, I just need to wrap my brain around autism spectrum. How do I understand it and how do I relate it to my hotel colleagues? So I just pulled up a simple definition, and this is the definition that came up. So I will also say, I'm gonna sort of cliff notes this entire presentation for you. It is very wordy. There are lots of words, and I hate everything about a slideshow with lots of words in it. It is my least favorite kind. However, the reason it is written this way is so that following the training, I can email it to hotels and they can share it with their staff and they can better understand it without me having to speak to every housekeeper, every dishwasher, every front desk clerk who works the midnight shift. This is so they can print it out, remember the information, and share it with their team. So excuse all the words. But when I pulled up the definition for autism and autism spectrum disorder, this is what came up, the things that we typically associate with autism spectrum. Challenges with social skills, repetitive behaviors, speech and nonverbal communication. And this statistic was recently updated that according to the CDC, autism affects 1 in 44 kids. 1 in 44 kids. And that's not counting adults on the spectrum. That's just in kids. And so now, according to the CDC, for the first time, more than 2% of American children have the developmental disability or are on the autism spectrum. And those are brand new statistics. But this part of the definition really stuck out to me. Autism is often accompanied by sensory sensitivities and medical issues such as gastrointestinal disorders, seizures or sleep disorders, as well as mental health challenges such as anxiety, depression, and attention issues. Now, the reason this really stuck out to me is, can you guys think of anyone else who might have experienced anxiety, depression, or attention issues over the last 2 years? Like pretty much everyone, right? Like that's like normal practice these days. It's just to live through life with anxiety, depression, or attention issues leading into 2022 these days. So I think that's definitely relatable to just about everyone who goes through this training. Here is a statistic that I use to explain to hotels and attractions, which we added in this year's part of the grant, why this is so important to them, why this is relevant information, why this is an audience that they need to speak to and to cater to in their businesses. So this statistic blew my mind as a hotel marketing background person. In North America, US and Canada, over 20 million people are parents to 1 or more children with autism. When those parents of autistic children were asked, do you take family vacations? 87% of them said no. 87% of 20 million potential travelers. But then when they were asked if autism-friendly options were available, would your family be more inclined to travel? 93% said yes. I mean, think about the things that you've experienced during travel in your life, the way that it opens the mind and educates us, brings us closer together as family, or maybe you just need to travel for your job. These statistics are definitely, I think, help to sway the industry of why this is important for them to learn more about. Okay, these are specific instances that I like to use to teach our hoteliers and attractions why, once again, this is so important for them. This is from one of our advisory council members, and she talks about how her son, who is now an adult, attends the University of Alabama in Huntsville, drives himself, and quote unquote may not look like he has a disability, which I try to stress to our attractions. He, growing up, loved the botanical gardens, but only if he could choose where to go within the gardens. And he loved Space Camp and Aviation Challenge, but he had to have a crew trainer who understood his challenging behavior and rigid thinking patterns. And they have visited hotels in which the check-in line was long, and he had meltdowns due to the inability to wait. He can't sleep in a room near elevators or a lot of other noises in the hallway. And this one struck me particularly that once there was a fire alarm that went off, and that he stayed while they were staying away from home, and he was excessively worried about there be a fire for the rest of the trip. Now, I don't know how often you guys stay in hotels, but I used to work in them each and every day, and the number of times that a fire alarm went off would probably blow your minds. And so I use this example with hotels. Who knows that that thing that's a blip to us has such a major impact on our travelers. This is a little video that I'm going to share with you that I share with our hoteliers. It's a firsthand account of what it's like to travel through public spaces on the spectrum.
6, 7, 8, 9.
Take my hand.
No, Alex. No, it's fine, isn't it? It's fine.
I'm not naughty. I'm autistic. And I just get too much information.
So I try to stress to them, sorry, it's kind of hard to see all of my little buttons here. All right. Of that the primary reason for this training is to help them understand that there are people that are traveling through this life differently than they are. I worked in hotels all of my adult life, and some of these things just never occurred to me because they didn't affect me every day. And now I walk into every place and I see it just a little differently. And that's the purpose of this training, is to help them see it a little differently as well. So after watching that video, I say to our hoteliers, I'm like, can you think of things in hotels that might affect someone with sensory sensitivities, right? There's bright lighting. You're required to have it. Health department says you are, right? You want to be set, you need safety, so you have to have the bright lighting. There's noisy lobbies, whether it's a family reunion or a ball team coming off a bus, getting ready to check in for a tournament. You've got people crowded in the lobby. It's already unfamiliar surroundings, which is already a challenge. And that there are just other guests who are loud in the hallways or slamming their doors and moving about and encroaching on other folks' personal space. So there's not a lot a hotel can do about all of these things. So instead, we explain to them and give them some strategies. First, explaining to them the strategies that families use, right? So the strategies families use are travel when it's, a quieter time. Don't go at the busiest times. Create a quiet space or calming down space. Use earplugs or noise canceling headphones, and think about pre-ordering meals when visiting a restaurant. I always joke here and say, probably 2 years ago, thinking about pre-ordering a meal for a restaurant may have been, crazy talk, but but it's the norm these days. So this is not such a challenging thing to do. Also, if the individual needs more stimulation, if there's someone who likes to stim and who needs to expel that energy, make sure there are toys or extra stimulating things like Play-Doh or squishy balls or spinning gadgets. And so I take these family strategies and then explain to our hotels how they can implement these strategies in their own businesses. But here's how the program specifically works. So I go all over the state and I do this training with hotels and attractions. And so they complete the training. And then they receive a sensory kit, which we're going to go over in just a minute, what's in that sensory kit. And then they pass this training on to all of their team members. And then what they do is create a special rate code. In hotels, when you go to check in, if anyone here has ever booked a AAA rate or an AARP rate, or you've traveled with a group rate like you might have done with this organization, there's oftentimes a special code. Now, when I ask the hotels to create this rate code, it is for one reason only, and it is so that it quietly identifies the families traveling with this program through the rate code. Tamika may not mention this from her experience, but there's a way for me to silently communicate with the hotel staff who is staying with the program so that the program is subtle, it is anonymous, it's just a kind of a secret code so that they know when guests are arriving. And it doesn't have to be booked through me. It can be booked by the individual traveler if they visit our website. So part of the program right now is helping them recognize that rate code. So then they get a listing on our website, which is the tourismalabama.org website, which I'll share here at the end. And then they will get periodic updates from me, and I keep the kits updated as well. So if anything happens to their kit, a piece gets broken or walks away, as sometimes happens, that I can keep their kits updated. And then this program is currently being promoted through the Alabama Tourism Department and through individual conventions and visitor bureaus for cities who have multiple hotels who've been trained. And then each hotel goes through an annual renewal where they do this training again, and we make sure all of their equipment is good. And the reason we do that is because, like anywhere else these days, hotels are changing staff pretty quickly. So we want to make sure that all of their staff stays up to date on training. Now, here is the best place you guys can come in, and where I would love your help, is the other part of this program, which is absolutely wonderful, is the practice stay program. So what that means is that we have any family who is within the state of Alabama, any family or individual who has anyone with any kind of sensory diagnosis, can go to our website, practice to the tourismalabama.org website, and at the top, click the button that says request a practice stay, and then apply for a practice stay. It's super easy. It's name, address, where you want to go, when you want to go, the type of beds that you need. And then I will make your reservation, set up your billing, and then you will send us back feedback. You'll get a form from me requesting feedback on how your stay was, if the hotel did what they were supposed to do, if they gave you the sensory kit, were there triggers in the hotel that they're unaware of. This is for two reasons. One, so we can get families and individuals out on the road and traveling and experiencing these hotels, but also so that the hotels get practice of working with families, understanding potential triggers, and getting their processes and procedures down so they never miss a guest or don't serve a guest appropriately. Here's what's in the sensory kit. It comes in a handy dandy bag that says Tourism Alabama. And the reason it says that is so that it matches that rate code that we talked about. So that when a front desk clerk sees the Tourism Alabama rate code, they know that that goes with the handy dandy Tourism Alabama bag that they have stowed at the front desk. It comes with sunglasses for anyone who might have light sensory sensitivity. It comes with a weighted blanket. Now, 10% of total body weight is the recommendation. However, we can't possibly have a blanket for every person of every size that might potentially visit a hotel. So we went with a 7 pound so that it wouldn't be too heavy for small children, but at least something for young adults or adults that was a little bit of a weighted blanket. This is also the only one I could find anywhere in the world that's safe to go through commercial laundry. And we intentionally made it gray so that it doesn't get mixed in with hotel linens and they can't find it. That was quite the hunt to find that weighted blanket. We also include ear protectors. They're not headphones. They don't play music. They are simply there to block any unwanted sound. There are a couple of fidget devices, one that's kind of a spinning device, and also that are the poppets that are very popular. Everything in this pack was chosen because it can either be laundered or wiped down easily with Clorox or Lysol wipes to sanitize for future guests. It would be great to have other things that a family might carry on their own. However, we're looking to maintain something at a hotel that they can easily manage, keep sanitary, and identify easily to use for multiple guests, one after the other. So this is what is within the kit. Here are a few things we keep at the front desk so that the desk has them if they should need them for any reason, not only for our guests, but for any other guests that they interact with. They have individual whiteboards so that they can communicate easily with a nonverbal guest who might be at the desk, and also simple communication cards for small children who might need them or someone else, simple communication for nonverbal. Then the thing we added this year is a white noise machine. We had suggested in the past that they themselves might want to add a white noise machine, but we just went ahead and made that purchase for them and added it to the kit so that every hotel would have one to block out those unwanted hallway noises that we're all familiar with, those ice machines, those elevators, those slamming doors. Here are kind of the above and beyond things that we talk about with the hotels. And some of these have been tweaked a little bit based on feedback from our guests who've stayed already. A chill zone or a quiet space. Now, a lot of our attractions, your bigger attractions, have implemented this. and have some quiet zones that are specific for this purpose. However, we always remind hotels, you don't have to take an old meeting room or a broom closet and make it a quiet space. Consider your meeting rooms that aren't in use. So if you have someone in the lobby who is clearly having to spin out and has a sensory overload, do you have an empty meeting room that you can offer a family while they wait if there's a delayed check-in? Is your restaurant closed between lunch and dinner and they're having to wait for their room to get ready? Just think about some alternatives for chill zone or quiet space. Social stories. And we have a couple of our folks who have trained and created their own social stories for their hotels and their attractions, just to better familiarize um, their guests with what they might experience when they arrive at the property. It's not a social story specifically, but we did have feedback from one family about the Battle House in Mobile. They wished it had had a kind of a picture directional to the pool area, because when our guests checked in, their little ones asked 50 umpteenth times about how to get to the pool. And so the Battle House actually created that map just for future guests. We also suggest they think about streamlining a food and beverage pre-ordering option and offer that to families if they can, without the family having to ask, to think about offering food and beverage pre-ordering for dinner. That's great for the family, but it's also good for the hotel to think about keeping those families in for dinner versus losing their business to a restaurant nearby. And then specialty menu options. This also came from our feedback from families utilizing the program. Since there seems to be such a overlap in those on the autism spectrum and a gluten allergy, we mentioned to hotels that they might want to think about gluten-free options. But goodness knows there's so many folks who have a gluten-free diet that is probably going to be good for them regardless of the clients. And then creating a local rack card. This is basically a brochure for families visiting to not only know that they are staying in a sensory sensitivity trained hotel, but what are maybe some other sensory options nearby for attractions, for museums or restaurants or other sensory places they can enjoy. I had a story from the Huntsville Convention and Visitors Bureau where the assistant said that she received a call from a family traveling with a child on the spectrum who asked, we'd like to know what there is to do in your community. Could you send us some options? And she said she spent, a full day gathering all the information about the attractions and coming up with suggestions. And she was so proud of the itinerary that she had put together, and she sent it to the family. And the family responded back and said, well, that's great, but what can we do? And it really opened her eyes to the difference of those traveling with someone with sensory sensitivities. And so they are also working on creating something that highlights the attractions that are geared toward those with sensory sensitivities. All right, this is once again a lot of words, so no need to read those now. But what this is a lot of testimonials that we've gotten since starting the program. These are from actual users. And, just thank yous. Thank you for the opportunity. We really appreciated it. We felt so homey at the hotel. This was such a breath of fresh air for our family. Everyone was very kind and considerate. And we think the program is fabulous. So we do have families out there exploring and utilizing this program, and we just want more of that. So I certainly hope you guys, if you can't utilize it yourself, can connect us to families who can utilize the program, so we can get even more families having comments like this about how great their experience was, and that they got to go to destinations and do things perhaps that they hadn't before. So here's some resources for you. TourismAll-a-Bama.org is my website. This is the one that has the practice stay application at the top of the page, but it also has great other information for anyone who wants to travel. It's got specific autism travel blogs. It has information about the ARCS flight simulation program, where you can actually go do a practice boarding of a plane if you're concerned about sensory sensitivities in air travel. There are tips and tricks, and there's also a way to download a TSA card for special screening. If you have someone who doesn't like to be touched because of sensory sensitivities, you can actually fill out a card to go through a special TSA screening. So lots of good resources there on tourismalabama.org. I know that was a lot of stuff, and I am used to doing it very fast because I'm used to hotels who don't want to listen to me any longer than they have to. So are there any questions after just that little bit of information? Questions? No questions?
I do. I have a question.
Oh, questions. Okay.
What's the difference between ATD and CVBBs, and how does it work in a hotel?
Okay, so the ATD is the Alabama Tourism Department. That is the state organization that is funded to promote tourism for Alabama. So they, as an organization, are promoting this program that exists, and they're encouraging travelers to come to Alabama for sensory sensitive travel and to come to our website, how to find those hotels that have been trained. So that's them. A CVB is a Convention and Visitors Bureau, and that's more on the city level. Huntsville has one, Birmingham has one, Montgomery has one. So you have the state telling people they need to utilize this program if they're sensory travelers or sensory sensitive travelers, and cities doing it. And for the hotels, once again, they get the information from me or for a reservation. And then once their guest checks in, they offer them that sensory kit and explain what's in it. And they also try to make sure that they are not putting guests near ice machines, near other noisy groups. So once the hotel receives this training, I know that I have had hotels who've told me they've lowered the lighting in their lobby. They've made their music quieter. Some of them have smells they pipe into the lobby, and they kind of are watching their scents and make sure it's not overpowering. So that's kind of how it works with all of those entities, all of those different organizations. Does that answer your question, Eric?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, thank you. Someone else, I think, had a question.
Yes, I do. Sonia Maney.
Hi, Tanya.
Hi, how are you?
I'm wonderful, thank you.
Yes, we've always had trouble staying in hotels in the past with our daughter. She's 25. This past summer, I'm not kidding, it literally ended. We was already decided to leave the hotel at midnight, but police were called. So I was like, oh, great. So,
Is it,
but
I was gonna ask, is it, what, I was just curious why.
yeah, well, I don't really know why. Evidently, the people next door to us was complaining to the desk, and the desk just called the police instead. Kid you not? And Alicia was just having a bit of a meltdown, not too bad.
Okay.
She just doesn't do well in hotels. I don't know why,
Gotcha.
but
Well, all
it
the
could have been
reasons,
for all the reasons there that you were pointing out and such.
yeah,
But I mean, there was one time when she was much younger, before we had her little sister. We were staying in a hotel out in I think Fort Payne or something. I don't know. Anyways, it was she literally didn't go to sleep at all till like for an hour, and that was at 3 o'clock in the morning, and I had to be up to go do a craft show the next day. That was our first, I was like, oh, this is just too much.
yeah, which is exactly why we created this program, to try to
Yes.
find hotels that we can make understand that you're having those experiences.
Mm-hmm.
Because if they don't have anyone in their life with any kind of disability, they just don't know any better. I mean, they don't know. They just don't know what they don't know. And because I have been in their shoes, I speak hotel, I sometimes say, and so I can relate to them in a way that makes them understand um, these things they haven't thought of. And I think what you're saying is so valuable. Um, I would love for you to try and do a practice day with us if you haven't, because this is what we're doing. It's getting families like yours to utilize these hotels so that you can hopefully have a great experience, but also that so they can learn and they can do better.
Right. Yeah, exactly. And everything. I think it would be a great experience. And thank you, Tamika, for inviting her on. And thank you for coming on and explaining all this. This is really good. I mean, I know she told me about it before, but that's one of those things and everything, it's not in the forefront of your mind. You kind of forget about it. But I'm glad
Yeah.
you come on so I can bring it back to the front again. Thank
So
you.
Tamika, would you like to share anything about your experience?
I went, my first time I went to Mobile, and I picked up the kit. I had my kids and my husband was in the car. I picked up the kit, and then I got everything, the keys and everything. Then I went into then I went and got my family out of the car. We went upstairs. So your kiddo does not have to be present for any of this to happen. When you sign in, you use your name. So she's tracking your name and everything, like she already told you. And I went in and my kiddos love hotels. So they had the time of their lives. They literally had fun. Just like the whole hotel stay, go in the elevators. Like, I love the fact that these little people just get excited just by being in the hotel. You have to do nothing else but take them in the hotel, and they had the time of their lives. So we went and we stayed, and then we left the next morning. And just make sure you know your check-in time. But I enjoyed it both times.
Yeah, Tamika went in each fiscal year. So we were doing one stay per fiscal year. So she managed to get one in last year's fiscal year and one in this year fiscal year. So she's gotten to go twice. So I would love for other folks on here to take advantage. Now, this wasn't my last slide. I wanted to make sure I also shared with you. I still am ready for questions, but this is another thing I share with the staff. Now, once again, this is for them to print out and look at. This is for every hotel staff to have at the front desk about how to communicate with those with disabilities. Once again, you have a lot of young people just starting out who may have not been exposed to or may not have someone in their life with a disability, and they are interfacing with the public day in and day out. And I want to make sure that they have a guide to these are the things that you say and these are the things that you don't say, and to always think about using that people first language, and that people are just people and they may just have different abilities to you, and not to panic or freak out or be concerned, to just understand the language that you need to use. So I give this to them as a handy dandy guide of just how to try to be comfortable talking with folks with a disability who may just be different than them. And this is, like I said, just for them to keep and to understand. And then last but not least, I would be remiss if I didn't once again say thank you, thank you, thank you, because this program is funded by the Alabama Council for Developmental Disabilities and developed by us here at UCP. And it also had received a little additional funding by the city of Huntsville. But yes, I am open to more questions. I wish I could see I can see your smiling faces. I wish you could see mine. I'm gonna have to get that worked out, but I'm still happy to answer any questions anybody might have if others have bubbled to the surface.
Veronica, I think you had a question.
Hey all. Hi.
Hi, Veronica.
Hi there, Leslie. I actually have had the privilege of hearing your presentation at a DMH meeting you presented. So it's awesome to just get reinforced and hear all the same wonderful things all over again. So excited about what you're doing. I had a question. My son is a power chair user and a AAC user. So we have a lot of nonverbal communication, but I was kind of curious more from the kitchen restaurant type perspective, from the language that we use to prepare food that a lot of our kids have issues with eating, and just kind of helping the staff to understand, like, Kyle needs his food. Like if he orders a piece of chicken, would you have the ability to prepare it in a way that he's able to eat it and things like that? Do you go through scenarios like that with the kitchen and the restaurant food and beverage directors and things like that?
I haven't yet. I'm not opposed to that. I will tell you most frequently what is occurring, and I'll just kind of tell you how it happens. What is most frequently happening is that I am brought into a staff meeting, a front desk meeting, a meeting of the Convention and Visitors Bureau where all the general managers or salespeople are present. Rarely do I get to speak to an entire staff. Like most everywhere else, many of them are super short staffed, and I do this presentation in about 35 minutes so I can get in and out of their hair pretty quickly. And so we haven't gotten into that deep dive, but I absolutely think that there is opportunity there, not only for hotels, but to
more from the standpoint of just having a meeting with the food and beverage director and saying,
Yes.
listen, on this menu, a parent comes in and they have an asterisk that says, okay, we have the option of preparing your food for, whatever terminology you would use. That's just to know that some parents are shy or embarrassed to ask, can you go chop this food up really small? Or can you, can you make sure that, you have, just the language of what we're used to doing in our own homes. Because in many cases, it's hard when you have a person who cannot chew food and needs to have, other options that are healthy. But just knowing that they would have that on their menu in some way, saying that we welcome, all types of suggestions to prepare food for our friends with special needs.
I love that. I will need to, Veronica, I'm going to be honest, I'll need to deep dive and maybe seek you back out to talk about that, to figure out if that is an expanded phase of this program that is a specialty track, a course track for food and beverage specifically. I mean, I like the idea of potentially having course tracks. Hey, Jennifer McIntyre, there's another person who's used our program. I recognize the name when I see one. And so, yeah, just to have another track that's specific to housekeeping, specific to food and beverage, specific to all the departments of the hotel. I sort of love that idea. It's all just time and money, right? We'll figure that out.
Like everything else, everything else in our lives, it's all time and money.
That's right. Jennifer also used our program, and so I don't know if you want to speak on it at all.
Yes, and I had a quick question too for you. So I used the program. I have 2 children who qualified, so we actually got two night stays. And we did it right when the program began. We stayed at the Mobile and the Mobile location, and it was very similar. The kids just loved being in the hotel, swimming in the pool, riding the elevator. My children have sensory processing disorder and ADHD and autism, and so they can be perceived as being rambunctious or odd. But we did not have any difficulties with the staff that we encountered. Everyone was very kind, very helpful. Yeah, we had a great experience. So I loved it. I thought it was great. But I was going to ask.
I was going to say, before you ask, you can correct me if I'm wrong. This is how excited the hotels are to work with our families. If I'm not mistaken, I think that even upgraded your room.
Yes, they did. We got like the presidential suite, you guys.
It's like Disney World. They treat you just like that too. I love going to Disney.
I didn't want to like brag, but yes, we did. We got quite the treatment. And so my daughter was able to have kind of like her own space, which is really nice for someone who's on the spectrum. She was able to have her own little room with her own little TV. And that was really nice and accommodating for her. Yes. And
But
I
you
was
had a
gonna,
question. I'm sorry. Yeah.
yes, I was gonna ask you, Leslie, I'm speaking at the Bell Center next week to a group of parents, if it would be okay if I shared with them this resource, or if that would be too many people to share this resource with.
No, the more the merrier. I want as many applications as possible. Just they'll have to give me a little grace on it being, we want to go tomorrow.
Yeah, right.
Yeah. Tomorrow might be a little bit hard. But yeah, the more the merrier. I am ready for more applications. Please share it. I actually earlier, and I can send it to you separately, sent a simple one-page flyer to Linda to share with the group. It's just the one page, go to request a practice stay on this website to apply for your free hotel. So hopefully she'll share that with the group, or I can share it with you directly, and that's an easy one. I'm also working with someone right now to have it translated to Spanish so that we can share it even further.
Perfect. Yes, thank you so much.
I
No,
had
thank
a
you.
question.
Yes, hi.
I'm actually from Huntsville.
Hey, Jenny.
I'm the furthest north on this group.
Well, hello, neighbor.
Hello, hello. Anyway, I am curious, do you only target the large hotels? Because I get the sense that if we targeted like large bed and breakfasts also, that maybe a sensory child might not have as tough an issue as they would with, I'm saying might, I'm postulating here, but maybe if it was in more of a home type setting, it'd be interesting to find out.
Jenny, I actually am talking to anyone who will talk to me. I have talked to bed and breakfast, state parks that have lodging options. I am training the visitor center at Gulf Shores in March, like just the visitor center employees want to learn so that if people come into their visitor center. So I am open. I have on the way to Gulf Shores, I'm stopping in Selma at a 53-room hotel, the St. James, to do a training there. So it's just all about knocking on doors and getting the trust of those properties that they're waiting for. What's the catch? There is no catch. I am in and out of your hair. We will place guests in your hotel. So absolutely, anyone that you know in a hotel, bed and breakfast, anywhere that is lodging that will listen to me, I will come and talk to them happily.
What about Buttersville, for example? Has there been anything done there?
Yeah, I reached out to the Marshall County Visitors Bureau, and it was the height of, I will say, in the tourism industry, like everyone else, COVID has a bit of a challenge as far as getting in places and training with folks. Also in December, we hit a couple of weather bumps, if you recall, with the weather coming and going. And so it's really, I've reached out to them, but as I am the single person who does the training, books the reservations, does all the things. So it certainly could be circled back to, I will say that.
Okay, thank you.
But thank you. Anybody else?
Hello, it's Veronica again. I didn't raise my hand, but I was just curious, how are you collecting your data and how are you planning on reporting any type of, so you could take this on a higher platform and on a more bigger scale, but what are your type of, what did your grant request for that, and what were some of your quote unquote promises for feedback and long-term sustainability as part of your grant?
So the grant specifically records things like demographic information as far as background, rural or urban, ethnicity. It also, as far as rural or urban, as far as where the users are from. Then so it does all the demographic. It talks about whether or not this program has made them feel as though they are able to advocate for themselves. And so it goes into all of their standard demographic reporting. I then on top of that request specific information about the hotels themselves so that I can give them valuable feedback on where they're succeeding and where they're having failures as far as if someone's dropping the ball on their end. So that's the kind of feedback that I provide and report for the grant. How many families utilized the program, how their experiences were, and then all of their demographic information. As far as taking it to a bigger scale, wow, believe me that it's limitless how much we could do. I get I was contacted by someone recently in Ontario who wanted me to talk to her about the program. I'm speaking at a conference in Washington State in April about the program and inclusive travel. But it's just figuring out funding and funding agencies and pairing that funding. Right now, we're strictly focused on Alabama because we're working with ACDD, and we're strictly working on Alabama families and Alabama hotels. And so thanks to their generosity, we were able to expand this year into attractions as well, and training attractions, so that potentially a family can visit a destination and have, oh, here's where you're going to go. Here are the attractions you can visit while you're there. Here's where you'll stay. Here's where you can eat. There are some national certifying agencies. Some of those are paid. Some of those really don't seem to be doing much different training than we are. However, we're not calling what we do a certification. It's strictly awareness. So Veronica, those are all excellent questions. It's one of those things that we're just going to keep on growing in whatever way that makes sense, and doing the best we can as we can. Right now, we've at this point, I've trained about 70 hotels across the state. I've trained all of the major visitors bureaus. So except Montgomery. Montgomery's been a challenging one, but all the major cities have had me in to do trainings. The Birmingham Convention Visitors Bureau, the Huntsville, Mobile, Tuscaloosa have all had me in to do trainings, and then smaller cities as well. So we're trying to not leave any stone unturned. But once again, there are limitless families, limitless hotels and attractions, and we're just doing the best we can by every family we can help right now within the state. That probably didn't answer your question, but I want to make it as big as I can hear your wheels turning, wanting to make it, I assure you.
And one last question, do these hotels have some type of signage or something that designates that it's a hotel that has had your training, that kind of brands it, so that if we were walking in as a parent, we'd be able to know that?
Not currently, and I'll tell you why. Although it's on my to-do list, I wish I could show you my camera with my list of to-dos for Tourism Alabama. But the reason why is because with the practice days happening right now, I still consider a lot of those hotels in the practice phase, and I don't want to put a sign up that says their awareness trained until I felt enough guests have gone through their property to feel confident that each individual guest is going to get the same experience. Does that make sense?
Absolutely.
Okay.
So Leslie, this is Linda. We're going to the Renaissance in Mobile. Have you trained there?
Yes, we have. The river.
Yes.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yep.
So that's just good to know that we can kind of reference it and make, so they know more of us are aware.
Their general manager, Kent Blackington, actually, he goes by Spike, fun, was the person who was the head of the Hotel Association who had me come into Mobile in the first place. So he actually was the person, the general manager of that property, actually spearheaded making sure that we got into as many Mobile hotels as possible.
Nice.
And then, as Jennifer mentioned, the Battle House was trained as well. Those are both Renaissance properties.
Yes.
Yeah.
That's actually.
Hey, I have a quick question.
Yes.
Sorry, this is Kim. I don't know if you can see me, but hopefully you can hear me. I know that this is primarily focused on commercial properties, but I was just wondering if you had reached out to churches, or churches were at all receptive to this.
Since it's specifically tourism based, I have not. I've been focused really on tourism, on hotels, attractions, restaurants has been our primary focus.
Okay, I know a lot of churches could really use the information. So happy to help there where I can, if I can.
So I will say that here at UCP, we do have another program that works specifically with like church daycares, or which is the SEEK program, the Child Care Enhancement with a Purpose. And so I know we deal with a lot of church daycares through that program. But as I said, this one's really just tourism based, since that's really my background and scope of knowledge.
There are some churches that are out there that have ABA therapists on site when you leave your child. And the Church of the Highlands, it is in Birmingham, and they have different locations. They have ABA therapists on site doing your church service. And they ask that you take your child to the same service every week, like regular, so that that child can build a community and see the same kids every week. But the Church of the Highland does have an ABA sensory program. That is one that I currently use. So I know, and they are out of Birmingham, but they have an Auburn location. The Church of the Highlands already have people on site. They have licensed ABA therapists, trained professionals to work with your children doing child services.
Yes, Tamika, this is Linda. So if you guys think back to the December PIPA meeting that we had a panel of families, and Susan was one of the panelists. She's the director of the disability program at Church of the Highlands, and she travels around the state and does that. And she has a son with autism, so it is a little over the top, because she is on top. She's just so involved with it and knows all the needs and everything. But it is a great program.
I'm sorry, I didn't catch that. What was that?
I was just saying that the Church of the Highlands, like Tamika was saying, that you met the person that's in charge of the disability program at our December meeting.
Oh, okay. We actually attend Highlands too, but the Gaston campus has only been open a little over a year, and usually they start with the adult program after a year of it being open. But their what was it called? Haven coordinator had left, and they had just hired a new one, so it wouldn't be for another 6 months. But it would be interesting to speak with the that lady who you were talking about had came to our, you said December meeting?
Yeah, Susan Pennell.
Susan Pennell. Okay. Yeah, I think I've actually talked to her before.
Yeah. She was my family trainee at Sparks for like 2 years.
I've got a question for Leslie.
Yes, ma'am.
Hey, I was looking on the website, and it said that you must be resident of the state of Alabama and be required to show proof of diagnosis. Is that, like, if I tell somebody about this, is just a letter from the doc, or what specifically are you looking for?
Yeah, it can be a letter from the doc. It can be a AEP. It can be anything that talks about an IEP. I'm sorry, and it can be anything that talks about the diagnoses. It's real. We tried to make the threshold as easy as possible, so it's not a further burden on families to participate. And then if you ever chose to utilize the program on your own, I talked a lot about the request a practice day. The other thing that says make a reservation is all of our partner properties. Now you'll notice that I talk about the fact that we've trained over 70 hotels, but there's probably, I don't know, less than about 24 here, if that. Part of that reason is if hotels cannot get me that rate code where they can identify our guests and they can't complete all the steps I ask them to complete, even though I've given them sensory kits, I do not include them on our listings. Only after they've taken practice days, have they given me the rate code, have they done their part, do they get included on our listings. So the hotels that are on our website that say make a reservation are the ones who have done all the steps they need to do to be qualified. Even, like I said, I'm happy to talk to everyone who listen, but if they don't do their part, they don't get listed. So we've trained a lot more hotels than are reflected on our website, but that's the reason why. But Lisa, if you're looking at the application, you can back me up on it's super easy, right?
So Veronica, I see your text, your video is blocked.
Yeah, it says you can't start your video. I thought maybe it was because I was moving around too much and making y'all sick.
Well, you know, I will admit to blocking some people, especially when they're in a car, they're driving around. It's like it's like so
No,
distracting.
I try to be respectful with that. So I totally, like I
Well,
said,
you know, you just kind of forget it's on sometimes.
yeah, I'm in this
Not
caregiving.
you, but just, I mean, I do. It's like, you know, it's just a thing to.
Yeah, I'm in this training process with my DSP, so I'm kind of back.
Can you turn it on now?
Let's try it.
Yep, there you are.
Yay.
Yeah.
Thank
So
you.
we're gonna give me about 2 minutes, and then we'll start our next presentation. Okay. So don't everybody leave. Don't take a long break. Just grab a drink or something, and we'll be right back on.
Well, I am stepping away, so I wanted to say thank you to everyone once again for having us. I look forward to seeing your many applications for Tourism Alabama, and happy travels, everybody.
Thanks, Leslie. Make sure to send me all that information.
Absolutely.
Thank you. Thank you, Leslie. It was really nice getting to meet you and to learn about your program you have.
Lovely to
So
meet you
definitely
all.
got to try it out.
And to some of you, hello again. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Is anybody staying on to chat?
Sure.
Hey, Jennifer. I feel like we need to take these opportunities and have an opportunity to see how everybody's doing. How's everybody's lives been since we saw you last? Everything.
Well, I'm still recovering from my COVID.
Wow.
I sound pretty good.
Eric, you staying COVID free?
Yes, ma'am.
Oh, good. Yeah, I had Kyle and I had a stomach bug.
Oh yeah, no, that's been going around too.
Over the weekend, and then I got a cold, so it's like, what the heck?
Yeah, I had one of the moms in my son who's 5, his preschool class. One of the moms said that her family has now gotten the stomach virus for the second time.
I know.
Man, that's not sound really good.
No, it doesn't sound good at all. That sounds horrible.
We had fevers. I mean, that's been the worst too.
Yeah, a few years ago we had that. My son got stomach virus.
Hold on for a minute.
And a fever virus at the same time. And I mean, I just didn't think I was going to make it. I mean, it was just horrible. Horrible.
Crazy.
That practice day, if you guys haven't done it, y'all should definitely do it. I mean, we went to Mobile and the kids loved it. You know, we took the kids over to the battleship, and we took them out to eat on a place where they could go out and see like alligators. And I mean, my son still talks about Mobile from that one trip that we did down for this practice day.
Did you go across the bay to Destiny? to
Mhm.
Alligator Alley before you went?
Can't remember all the places that we went. I mean, it was just so hot on the battleship. That's what I remember.
So it's only in Mobile. They don't have anything in Fairmont.
No,